shadows dance and whispers echo, where the veil between worlds thins, we dare to ask what's really out there. Join us as we venture into the spirit realm, armed with science, skepticism, and a healthy dose of curiosity. This is Paranormal Declassified, The Spirit Files, a podcast by Mount Washington Valley Spirit Paranormal Investigators. Here is your host, Eric Extreme.
The veil is thinning, and reason is poised to peek through the cracks, revealing what lies beyond. The world is full of mysteries waiting to be unraveled. Join me as I seek answers in the shadows, explore the whispers that echo in the void, search for clues to unlock the secrets of the unknown, and listen for the faintest signals of natural forces that subtly shape our perception of the supernatural and reality. My name is Eric Extreme. I will lead you as we decipher the mysteries of the paranormal here on Paranormal Declassified, The Spirit Files, a podcast by Mount Washington Valley Spirit Paranormal Investigators. Okay, so ghost hunting on TV. How did that even happen? Let's explore paranormal television. Ditching the dusty mansions and cheesy scares, we're tracing the evolution of spooky TV from its low-budget beginnings to today's streaming craziness. We're talking early experiments, those weird network shows, the reality TV explosion, and the streaming world we're living in now. What were producers thinking? What gadgets did those ghost hunters actually use? How did we, the viewers, learn to feel fear and wonder through a screen? By the end, you'll see how this whole thing went from innocent mysteries to a serious business and what it all means for anyone obsessed with evidence, storytelling, and that blurry line between them. TV, way back when, was full of variety shows, stage magic, and spooky stories perfect for the planting of eerie ideas. In the late 1950s, One Step Beyond showed up, dramatizing supposedly true accounts of the uncanny with a host who never cracked a smile. The Twilight Zone and The Outer Limits followed, turning the paranormal into stories that made you think. They weren't out there hunting ghosts, but they gave TV a way to create mood, build suspense, and slowly reveal the unseen. Those early shows nailed one thing. They grab you with a puzzling cold open, hinting at mystery, mess with your head with a shocking twist, and leave you wondering what was real. One Step Beyond had a host walking us through supposedly real events, often saying that some things just can't be explained. The Twilight Zone and The Outer Limits used the paranormal to hold up a mirror to our own lives, teaching us to look for hidden meanings and accept that the truth might be just out of reach. They weren't using EMF meters, but they created a language that later shows would steal. A quiet voice, a slow zoom, a sudden silence. You know, something's coming. Jumping ahead to the late 1970s, producers started packaging real-world mysteries with a serious tone and a field team. In Search Of, with Leonard Nimoy, presented historical puzzles and psychic claims through calm narration, archival footage, interviews, and visits to the actual locations. Other documentary series in the early 1980s used journalists of scholars' guides, placing paranormal claims alongside archaeology, folklore, and cold case files. TV wasn't about jump scares yet. It was about creating a catalog of mysteries and taking a measured, on-the-ground approach. In Search Of helped create the early TV toolkit with real-world mysteries, pairing a calm narrator with archival film and on-site reporting. They go from newspaper clippings to witness interviews, ending with a careful walkthrough of the location with a knowledgeable guide. It might seem tame now, but the show taught a valuable habit, letting the camera linger on ordinary details like weathered wood, tide lines, and the angle of a hillside, subtly teaching audiences to look for context before calling something strange. Later series kept this up, showing the location in daylight, letting the locals share their stories, and only going back at night after the geography and history were clear enough that any sound or shadow could be weighed against what the audience already knew. By the late 1980s, reenactments took over. Unsolved Mysteries premiered as an NBC special in 1987 and became a weekly series in 1988, mixing crime stories with supernatural accounts, using actors, moody lighting, and first-person testimony. This show kept the paranormal connected to everyday life and taught viewers to accept testimony shaped by editing, music, and voiceover as evidence. Tabloid news magazines also booked psychics and ghost claimants as lively segments. Audiences learned to expect feelings, not answers. Unsolved Mysteries made reenactments persuasive by weaving first-person testimony with stage scenes, then cutting to a detective, historian, or caretaker whose presence suggested verification even when the evidence was weak. The show also blurred genre lines within a single hour, moving from criminal fugitives to long lost relatives to haunted highways, letting the trust built by a solved case carry over to a ghost segment that might never be resolved. Understanding this transfer of trust helps viewers today keep perspective when testimony, dramatization, and authoritative sound bites combine to create a feeling rather than to deliver a definitive result. On October 31st, 1992, the BBC aired Ghostwatch, a pre recorded special presented as a live broadcast from a suburban home. Viewers flooded the network with calls, and the event showed the power and responsibility of live framing. A believable investigative format could create intense engagement, but also confusion and distress. The line between drama and unscripted investigation became more valuable and more profitable. As the 1990s ended, studio shows brought mediums to the stage for audience readings, crossing over with John Edward debuted in 1999 on Sci-Fi Channel and entered syndication in 2001, emphasizing emotional closure and portraits of grief. The sets were bright, the hosts were gentle, and the evidence was personal experience delivered through a practiced performance. Quick emotional moments, applause cues, and human stakes took precedence over location-based mystery. Around the turn of the century, reality television exploded, delivering a new template. A group enters a location after dark, uses handheld cameras, conducts sessions in the near darkness, and records whatever happens. MTV Fear ran from 2000 to 2001 and isolated participants to capture reactions. In the United Kingdom, Most Haunted launched in 2002 with a rolling team that included hosts, historians, and a medium. The visual language became iconic: night vision green, infrared glare, quick pans, whispers. This show wasn't a reenactment, it was a ride. In 2004, Ghost Hunters premiered on the Sci-Fi Channel, featuring a team of plumbers by day who frame their work as a trade. Arrive, inspect, test, debunk when possible, and return findings to the client. The practical service arc felt respectful and gave each episode a clear shape. Soon, more series joined. Destination Truth arrived in 2007 with a globe-trotting adventure format that chased creatures, folk stories, and haunted reports across continents. Ghost Adventures premiered in 2008 on the Travel Channel and popularized the overnight lockdown at a single location, with a loud, confrontational host and a heavy emphasis on reactions on camera. The St. Augustine Lighthouse in Florida became a touchstone for the new investigative style when a handheld camera appeared to capture a dark figure moving at the top of the spiral staircase. The clip was widely shared online, prompting the team to implement tighter controls, including power checks, light source verification, and extended static camera coverage. This episode exemplifies a service arc at its best because it begins with a claim from a real property owner, tests it through steps a client could replicate, and reports back in plain language while acknowledging uncertainty where it persists. Other teams pursued a different arc that centered on a single location and an extended overnight stay, where the tension came not from a client awaiting answers, but from the strain of being sealed inside with a haunted narrative. And this variety helped the genre expand by offering practical assistance to some viewers and a sense of endurance and catharsis to others. As these programs matured, they put tools at the center stage. Viewers saw meters and boxes with flashing lights, laser grids that painted rooms with dots, thermal cameras, and motion sensors. Radio sweep ghost boxes are widely available, and a novelist is claimed to map environmental values to a built-in word bank that outputs words or phonemes. The phrase electronic voice phenomenon, or EVP, became a staple for unexplained sounds captured on recorders. A dark room, a listener leaning in, a device chirping. In that context, even a blink of noise could feel like contact. Television popularized specific devices and assigned them clear narrative roles. A K2 meter acts as a simple electromagnetic field detector that lights and steps. A millimeter adds a temperature probe to an EMF readout. A spirit box rapidly sweeps radio bands so fragments of speech can bleed through. A novelist is claimed to map environmental values to the built-in word bank to generate words or phonemes. Laser groups paint a room so any occlusion appears as a moving gap. And thermal imagers display surface temperature differences caused by drafts, animals, or equipment heat. None of these tools can definitively verify the presence of a spirit, but they can reveal common causes often mistaken for paranormal activity, such as loose wiring, appliance cycles, heating and cooling airflow, or static buildup. When shows take time to establish baselines and then compare later spikes to those baselines, viewers get a practical model for home testing that does not rely on dramatic embellishment. At the same time, a few shows work to normalize skeptical practice. Investigators looked for loose window panes, stray wiring, faulty ballasts, carbon monoxide alarms, and wildlife. Segments sometimes slowed down to test a claim with basic controls, which modeled how natural explanations can survive pressure. The larger market still learned that tension and cliffhangers drive ratings, so even debunking was often cut for suspense. At the same time, another branch focused on interviews and dramatizations of life inside a haunted home. A Haunting began in 2005 on the Discovery Channel and leaned into a personal narrative. The hook was the cost of living with fear rather than the chase. Actors, moody lighting, and evocative sound design made the memory feel immediate and drew viewers who wanted story and catharsis over field procedure. A Haunting and similar series shifted the camera towards the emotional toll of living with fear and using recurring narrative beats that audiences recognize for their emotional logic, beginning with an ordinary house and a slow escalation of events, continuing through strain of relationships and a breaking point, and ending in a change in belief or behavior. The craft lives in the staging of memory, since production records a clean interview and then reconstructs the home in controlled light so that remembered scenes feel present without claiming that the staging proves anything. By the early 2010s, the look and sound of paranormal television had entered internet culture. Night vision faces became reaction images. Short clips of footsteps or voices spread widely. Fans debated authenticity in forums and comment sections. Producers recognized the feedback loop and built social segments into episodes, invited viewer clips, and hosted live chats. The genre learned to live on air and online simultaneously. Another long running branch framed archaeological sites and historical myths as signs of visitors from elsewhere. Ancient Aliens began as specials in 2009 and as a series in 2010 on the History Channel. Lavish visuals and a confident narrative style made speculation feel like discovery. The appeal was global in scope and a grand theory. The pushback was that strong claims often leaned on edits and enthusiasm more than data. The format endured because it delivered travel, wonder, and a question large enough to fill an hour. In the late 2010s, several cable brands pivoted towards paranormal content. Travel Channel accelerated its shift in 2018, turning entire nights into haunted blocks. Discovery Family streaming bundles expanded archives and premieres from 2019 through 2021, allowing viewers to binge long runs and follow favorite teams across seasons. Paranormal series remained relatively affordable compared with elaborate dramas and delivered loyal niche audiences live and on demand. Variations multiplied. Duos, family teams, historian and investigator pairs, psychic and detective pairs, retro case file revisits, celebrity drop ins, haunted roadshows, and meta series that debunked viral clips. Streaming platforms commissioned originals that leaned into high concept hooks or personal diaries. Some invited people to recount experiences with minimalistic reenactment. Others staged endurance challenges inside sealed sites. Independent creators built large audiences on video platforms and funded investigations through viewers rather than networks, often returning to locations after television crews moved on. Styles shifted towards longer uncut segments, raw audio, and behind the scenes setup. Investigators treated the audience as partners rather than recipients of a tight reveal. Canceled television teams sometimes continued online with audience support. The Holzer Files, which revisited the case files of researcher Hans Holzer, premiered in 2019 and fits into this latter period of archival revisits and streaming-friendly formats. Creator-led work has transformed the length and texture of investigations by replacing tightly edited 42-minute segments with extended uncut footage, live chats, and post-facto access to raw files. Some teams now share audio as WAV files and post spectrograms so audiences can check whether a voice-shaped pattern is present or whether the sound is likely pareidolia within broadband noise. Other teams post environmental logs with timestamps so a thump can be correlated with an appliance cycle or a shift in wind, inviting the audience to participate in the review process rather than accept a cut conclusion. This community pressure has nudged networks shows to include longer takes and to label moments more clearly as story or test, which is a healthy development for both entertainment and inquiry. Across these phases, the key lessons are about television language. Music sets expectations. Color signals tension. Edit speeds tells you when to lean forward. Whispering invites you to listen harder and makes silence feel like a threat. A device with light suggests measurement even when it only reacts to ordinary conditions. A caption that reads possible voice primes the brain to hear words and noise. The way a host frames uncertainty can shape whether a viewer learns to test claims or reads every odd sound as a conversation with the unknown. Critics point to recurring issues, lack of controls, and searching for natural causes of perceived activity through environmental, infrastructural, and human perceptional causes. Then baselines, small samples, selective edits, and feelings are presented as data. The unfamiliar is mistaken for the impossible. Supporters counter that the genre also tells stories about fear, history, community memory, and a human wish for contact. These aims can overlap, but they run on different rules. When a program calls itself an investigation, methods invite scrutiny. When it calls itself a haunting story, it asks viewers to engage as if it was a docudrama. The sharpest audience learns to recognize the type of show and adjusts its expectations accordingly. Paranormal television reflects local culture. In the United Kingdom, history and heritage sites sit at the center, and presenters balance folklore with archival records. In North America, shows often lean towards team dynamics and gear. In parts of Asia, variety programs mix comedy with supernatural stunts and tests of courage. In Latin America, late night programs bring a carnival spirit to live call ins and mobile crews that chase rumors. Each tradition teaches a different way to watch and a different threshold for what counts as convincing. Meanwhile, regional styles shape expectations. British productions tend to ground every site in public records in the work of local historians and often treat the location as a character. Japanese variety programs incorporate courage tests and use the haunted site as a stage for social play. Latin American late night shows emphasize immediacy with call ins and mobile crews that treat rumors as prompts for live investigation. North American teams frequently foreground the crew as a family unit and the equipment as props that advance the narrative. Understanding these stylistic differences helps listeners see why a clip from one country may seem theatrical, why a clip from another feels like a walking tour with folklore notes and a quiet conclusion, thereby preventing unfair comparisons and clarifying the purpose of each tradition. Ethics matter. Filming in private homes adds pressure to families who are already frightened. Featuring historic sites can help preserve them through tourism, but can also encourage trespass. Centering a medium can confront people in pain, but can also foster dependence on a performance that cannot be verified. Responsible production means informed consent, clear disclaimers about methods, and respect for site stewards and local communities. Responsible viewing means curiosity without cruelty and care for the people in the story. Ethical considerations become tangible on set. A private homeowner may sign a location release, yet a thoughtful crew goes beyond the legal formality by agreeing on which rooms can be shown, how names will be handled, and what support will be offered if a clip attracts heavy attention after broadcast. At historic sites, responsible teams coordinate with stewards about alarm systems, artifact security, and visitor flow so filming does not disrupt operations or harm collections. And when mediums are involved, producers can state in plain language that readings are a performance and not a clinical service. Audiences are best served when a program explains its limits up front and treats consent as an ongoing conversation that extends beyond the camera's departure, especially when a location is likely to see a surge in visitors. Paranormal television endures because it lets us rehearse fear and hope in a safe place. It offers a puzzle to argue about with friends. It lets history breathe inside old buildings. It gives the quiet of night a voice. The format adapts easily. When budgets tighten, darkness and silence become the set. When platforms change, episodes break into short clips and live streams without losing shape. The subject is inexhaustible. Every town has a story, and every family has a room people avoid. Television knows how to find those rooms and invite viewers inside. To anchor the big picture, it helps to trace a few key moments that map the genre's evolution. It begins in 1959 with One Step Beyond and The Twilight Zone. two series that define the early blend of the supernatural and speculative storytelling. In 1963, The Outer Limits expanded its scope, taking on a more science fiction edge. Jump ahead to 1977, and In Search of introduced a documentary tone to mysteries of the unexplained, paving the way for Unsolved Mysteries in 1987, which merged true crime, legend, and the paranormal for mass audiences. In 1992, Special Ghost Watch stands out as a pivotal live framed event and blurred the lines between fiction and reality, setting the stage for the rise of reality based investigations. From there, the early 2000s saw a surge. MTV Fear in 2000, Most Haunted in 2002, Ghost Hunters in 2004, Destination Truth in 2007, and Ghost Adventures in 2008, all reflecting the era's fascination with on location, team based ghost hunting. Ancient Aliens arrived in 2010, extending the speculative format into pseudo documentary territory. Finally, The Holzer Files in 2019 revisited archival cases through a modern lens. Together, these milestones trace the medium's journey from scripted anthology to documentary, reenactment, reality investigation, and finally to the streaming and creator led projects of today. Television rewards what reads well on camera. Dark rooms with red flashlights read better than a slow daytime survey. A device with a screen reads better than a quiet data logger. A gasp reads better than a yawn. Investigators who appear on television learn to balance good habits with watchable habits. The best explanation methods are plain and separate theory from testing. Producers learn that clarity builds trust. When a host states what a tool can and cannot do and still brings the audience along, that is craftsmanship. When a team shows failure and turns it into a lesson, that respects the viewer. Viewers grow more discerning over time. They notice audio sweetening. They recognize repeated scare beats. They learn the camera geography of a building and ask how a sound could travel. They look for baselines in environmental contexts and expect a stronger history. The internet speeds up that education. Forums and channels run frame-by-frame analyses. Historians correct site myths. Engineers explain stray currents and radio interference. The tension between spectacle and scrutiny is healthy. It pushes the genre towards cleaner storytelling or cleaner testing, and sometimes both. The next wave will likely blend stronger research and the intimacy of creator-led formats. Expect more open data for audiences to review logs and spectrograms after an episode. Expect longer uncut segments for key moments and clearer labels that separate story from testing. Streaming will continue to support niche voices and speak directly to communities. Some productions may partner with universities and museums to host controlled studies inside historic spaces, turning a show into a public lab. Others will lean into folklore and treat the haunting as a lens on memory and place. Both paths can thrive together. Watch the time of day and environmental conditions. Listen for control language. If a team tests claims against typical causes, then it's a good sign. Look for baselines and follow-up measurements. Separate the human story from the evidential claim. You can empathize with a family and still ask hard questions of footage. Notice what the edit asks you to believe. If music and fast cuts do most of the work, treat the conclusion as a prompt for thought rather than a verdict. Television did not invent haunted stories, but it taught them how to stand inside a frame and move to a rhythm that serves both narrative and investigation by establishing the place, setting the stakes, trying a method, and reflecting on the outcome. That rhythm can serve truth when it shows failure and doubt without embarrassment, and it can provide comfort when it lets people speak about grief without turning their pain into a puzzle. The strongest future for the genre is not a single approach, but a set of clear labels and honest rhythms that help viewers choose how to watch. So if a show is a story, the listener can enjoy the narrative. If a show is a test, the listener can examine the controls. And if the show is both, the listener can approach it with an open mind and a critical eye. Paranormal television is a mirror for more than ghosts. It reflects how we handle uncertainty, how we seek meaning, and how we entertain ourselves while doing both. From calm narrators in cardigans to crew whispering in ruined hospitals, the screen has taught generations how to talk about things that do not sit easily inside ordinary language. The genre is at its best when it remembers that mystery is not the same as confusion, and fear is not the same as evidence, and that wonder does not need a script to be real. If future shows keep those distinctions clear, audiences will return for scares, for stories, and for conversations about what we can know and what we can test. It's worth keeping in mind that television ghost hunting shows are heavily edited and made for entertainment, so they're different from a real paranormal investigation. These television ghost hunts often use devices based on theories that haven't held up over time and methods designed to be exciting on screen, but they rarely begin by looking for natural explanations. A real life paranormal investigation typically starts with a detailed interview to understand what someone felt, when it started, what changes happened in their life, and how things like health, beliefs, or even imagination might be involved. Then, investigators often check the environment before looking at the claims, measuring EMF levels, temperature, humidity, pressure, carbon monoxide and other gases, infrasound and ultrasound, electrostatic charge, ion balance, vibration, airflow, drafts, room resonance, and many other potential causes for the perceived activity. They also look at photos, videos, and recordings for everyday artifacts such as backscatter, chromatic aberration, veiling glare, and moire, among others. It also means sometimes consulting experts with advanced degrees to understand possible natural causes better. Many cases have explanations that can be checked and repeated. The equipment you see on TV makes for an entertaining show, but doesn't actually detect or communicate with spirits. So enjoy the shows as fun stories, and think of the tools and methods you see on them as part of their appeal, but for entertainment purposes only. Television productions are more for viewer enjoyment than a real guide to paranormal investigations. It's best to enjoy them for the exciting experience they offer, while remembering they're designed for ratings and aren't a substitute for scientific investigation when trying to help someone who reaches out for help. From the eerie suspense of the Twilight Zone to modern ghost hunts, paranormal television has captivated audiences for decades. It's a testament to our enduring fascination with the unknown, and a reminder that the best stories are often the ones that leave us wondering. Science is the key to unlocking the mysteries of the paranormal. Don't be fooled by the shadows. Seek the light of reason. Remember, trust no one until rationality has exhausted all logical possibilities. I want to believe, but science must be your guide, because the truth is out there, just beyond the veil. This has been Eric Extreme from Mount Washington Valley Spirit Paranormal Investigators, with Paranormal Declassified, The Spirit Files. Until next time, stay skeptical.
The echoes of the spirits may soften, but the mysteries we've touched upon in Paranormal Declassified, The Spirit Files, are but a breath in the ghostly expanse. The Mount Washington Valley Spirit Paranormal Investigators will continue their journey into the spirit realm, seeking to part the veils and glimpse the hidden wonders beyond. When the ethereal plane whispers more of its secrets, we will unlock the shadows of the beyond. The afterlife awaits us there.